you're trying to find a sense of light and humor in some of the most darkest and heinous of situations. And to me, that's the most beautiful thing about stand-up is that like it really is the last place where I think the real freedom of speech exists.
Welcome back to the Corner Talks podcast. I have my good friend here.
How's it going, man? Happy to be back.
No, it shouldn't be about anything. Like, this is one life.
Yep, one life? Like, fucking do it.
My guy.
Like, she just got it. She totally understood it.
20 years old when I started just watching a lot of movies.
And it tells a story. I want to tell a story.
Today I have a good friend, talented comedian, performer, Singh. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Good, bro. Thank you for having me, brother.
Yeah, of course, man. Like I said, you've been really a talented comedian ever since I saw you. I was mesmerized by your ability to make a room laugh. And we first met at the Nothing Fancy venue back in downtown Toronto. You were hosting for one of Nima Naz's performances shows. And like I said, I just love the way you kind of moved the crowd. You kind of captivated everybody. It was a small room. It was very intimate, but you were able to succeed. So yeah, it was a really cool impression.
Appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, of course. So I see you been traveling on Instagram recently. Like you've come back from some sort of tour. What have you been up to recently?
Yeah, man. So I actually went out with my boys, Abbas Wahab and Mo Ishmael, who are also two Toronto-based comics, and they're doing big things too. Like Mo just got off Just for Laughs. Yeah, he just recorded an album, Homeroom Habibi. And Abbas, many people may know him from his podcast as well, Immigrant Section, but he also just released his own debut comedy album, Safe Black. But essentially, it was just kind of three of us that put together this independent tour. So we didn't really have anyone managing the bookings or anything. It was all done through us.
Right.
Abbas kind of spearheaded the project in terms of like connecting with venues, looking for different places to perform and working out the logistics. And basically, it was just three independent comics of color touring the country.
Run and gun.
Yeah, exactly. And just going to the most random, like Gander fucking Newfoundland. You know what I mean?
That's so wild. And how was the reception? Everyone was pretty positive, or did you deal with some challenges along the way?
To be honest, I think I was expecting there to be more kind of challenges in terms of the cultural differences for smaller towns, but everyone is actually much more receptive than I thought them to be. Nice. The shows were dope. And surprisingly enough, a lot of the smaller towns that you would go to, like some of the more suburban places, actually had some of the best shows because it's such a close-knit community that I guess they don't have much going on there. So like when something like this happens, it's like it's an event. You know what I mean? Like
it's a spectacle. Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's a spectacle.
Yeah.
But also the funny thing was like no matter where we went, like it could have been like the most less diverse of towns like Sydney, Nova Scotia, or like Gander, Newfoundland, we somehow still managed to bring out some kind of diversity. Cause like, there'll be some like Mo's Egyptian. So like I remember we went to Gander and it was like all white people, but then there was this whole Egyptian family that was like, yo, we saw your name. And we're like, oh, you know what I mean? We want to come.
Oh, okay. They recognized it. Yeah. They found the familiarity for sure. Exactly. And that's what a lot of comedians excel in, right? Is Sebastian Maniscalco the other day I was watching his Netflix special. I'm Italian, right? So our family, we resonate with his humor, and that's kind of like the selling point for him to create a special like that, right? Like that's kind of like his shtick, as they say. So
one thing about him too, I actually did, because I'm not like a huge follower of his, but Abbas was telling me when he started out, this was essentially what he was doing. He would go like tour across the country.
I believe that.
And he would say like, yo, I'll host, I'll middle, I'll headline, like whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. But like after the show, he would talk to people, he would network. And like that way, whenever he came back, people already knew him. So they were like, yo, we want to go support this guy. So even though his like social media platform at the time may not have been that big, people knew who he was because like it was like that face-to-face like guerrilla type marketing he did.
Yeah, for sure. No, and that's what gets him to the success that he is now, right? It's building that foundation in increments, slowly along the way, slowly but surely, I should say. It's that foundation, right? As an artist, as a filmmaker myself, that's what I kind of have to acknowledge and recognize, through the podcast, communicating with people like yourself, as I continue to make, fans or supporters or people that just, respect me as a creator, as a human being. Eventually, when I have my moment to shine, as they say, you'll recognize me, or you'll remember me, or you'll be like in that fan base, right? It all starts with now. It's not like when you make it, that's when you have your fans. It's like, no, you build them along the way, and so many people that we've associated with proven that notion.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, man. I love that ideology.
Perfect, man. Perfect. Well, speaking about your experiences, traveling across, Canada and going at all these like unpredictable places and dealing with all these challenges. I want to know from yourself, like, how did you become involved in comedy in the first place?
Well, okay. Do you want the long-winded answer? Or do you want the short?
Whatever is the most authentic or speaks the most truth about like how you come up. Yeah.
So like growing up as a kid, like I was always a huge fan of stand-up. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I remember when I was younger, I loved watching it. Like, there was always like those Just for Laughs, Comedy Central, like kind of shows. You'll have like headliners coming up doing a couple minutes. I would love watching that. Chappelle was one of my biggest inspirations growing up. Even now, like I still think
legend for sure.
Yeah, he was definitely a legend. But growing up, I loved watching it. And like, I know it sounds kind of cliche, but I remember watching these guys on TV and almost picturing myself there. Like I would picture myself like
that's
on
amazing.
Yeah. This.
So manifestation is, buddy.
yeah, 100%. 100%. But I guess at the time you don't know it. Right?
Yeah, of course. No,
you're a kid, so you're just kind of reenacting things out.
Yeah.
And then and over time, like, going to school and stuff, I was actually like, I was a pretty introverted kid, to be quite honest. I didn't really talk to much people, but it was kind of there was very contradictory because like as introverted as I was always the class clown. You know what I mean? I was always the guy that would like make jokes and bust jokes in class, or like when there was like presentations, like I know people hated like school presentations and stuff like that, but I loved it because like that was like a moment for me to kind of like bring that part of me out. It's like you had to listen to me. So I would always try to make them fun, or I would always try to make them funny and things like that. And, gradually comedy went from something that I just liked doing to almost becoming like a defense mechanism. Cause like I moved to Vaughan like about 4 or 5 years ago, but I grew up in Jane and Finch, and like I love where I grew up. I love my community, but like growing up there, like there was always like this pressure, especially being a male growing up in that area, where it's like you can't really show any signs of weakness, or like, you know what I mean? Or you would get preyed upon, or people would kind of smell that fear. So it was like you either had to put on this facade of being like this tough gangster guy.
I got you. Yeah. No vulnerability.
Yeah, no vulnerability. You know what I mean? And like I wasn't that guy. Like I wasn't
No, you're a lovable guy.
Hood, but I wasn't from the hood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had to like find a balance for myself. And I remember in high school, there was always these older heads. There was all these older guys that would stay behind the school waiting for just the younger kids to come out, and they would like, like just rob your shit, like tap your pockets.
Oh, wow.
Whatever. Change, give me your change. You have a phone, chain, whatever. But they never robbed me, not because like I was untouchable, but because I was broke. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a phone.
Yeah. Oh shit.
What? So it's like, yo, you can't steal shit.
Right. There's nothing to take from you.
Exactly.
I thought you were gonna say something heartfelt, like, no, they saw the goodness in me and they
thought
otherwise. Yeah. They're just like, nah, this guy has nothing.
Yeah. This guy's poor. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what happened, I remember one time we were out there and like these guys were coming up to me. But I remember one of them saying, like, yo, allow that kid, like leave him alone. He's funny. So I'm assuming he saw me like maybe because I used to do a lot of like plays and stuff in school, like for drama class.
Like a theater program? Nice.
No, like we had like a regular
Yeah.
But I remember we used to perform them in front of the school, like on stage in the auditorium.
Shit, yeah.
I used to do we used to do little sketches and stuff. and people loved it.
Of
And I
course,
guess
yeah.
he might have saw that and was like, "Yo, this kid's pretty funny, like loud." You know what I mean? And I remember that on top of the fact of like, shit that was going on at home. Like my pops left at a young age.
Right.
But I remember when he was around, there was a lot of like that there was a lot of that tension in the house. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
I always saw a
understand.
lot of arguments and things like that. And
Right.
like learning how to navigate like a dysfunctional household was like the only thing I knew how to do best was to break tension. Cause like I was pretty young at the time. I had an older brother who was kind of taking on a lot of responsibilities, like,
Yeah,
going to school, working,
of course.
helping out with bills and all of those things. So like I just took on this role as almost being like a mediator, but also that joker in the house to like
Right.
make it wasn't
The
too
comic
tense.
relief to kind of
Yeah,
alleviate the tension
yeah,
and the
exactly.
drama that was going on. Yeah, that's very
And then
interesting.
and the thing is, I didn't know I was playing that role until afterwards. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
It
But
didn't hit you, yeah, until
yeah,
retrospect. Yeah.
exactly. But I guess like fast forward until after high school, I remember during high school, all my friends used to say, like, bro, you got to try stand up. You got to try it. And my first set ever was at this club called Absolute Comedy
Nice,
at Young and Eglinton. I still work with those guys, but
nice.
um, I did the pro am night. And I remember at the time to sign up for an amateur night, you had to call the first Tuesday of the month between 10 a.m. and 10:30 to get on for the following month.
Oh
And like,
wow.
and I'm not lying to you, like you would literally call at least 300 times because
Oh, sometimes you wouldn't
ev-
even go through the call.
bro, no, like you
Oh
would
wow.
call and it would just go straight to voicemail. So you would have to
Holy
keep
shit.
calling.
So it's like
It was
getting tickets to a Leaf game, or it's just some event. Yeah.
bro, it was crazy. So I did that for 4 months consecutively. And then I finally got through and then they put me on. And I remember it was like a sold out show. All my friends came, like the whole front table was full of my friends and family. And and I remember the guy hosting at the time was this Asian dude with dreadlocks. He doesn't do comedy anymore. It was this like guy
Right.
named Alan Yu. But he brings me up and he's like, yo, it's this kid's first time. Who knows? He might be the next big thing. Da, 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 da. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Jesse Singh. And I go up and I crushed. Like
Oh, awesome. Wow, your
buddy,
first time on
yeah,
stage?
5 to 7 minutes I crushed,
Wow,
right?
good for you. There you go.
And it was like, and I remember getting off stage and I'm like, yo, like I'm born for this. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like,
Right.
this is great. Like,
That's
and
the
then,
further, yeah.
bro, for a year after that, I ate dick.
Yeah. that 5 minutes of glory never saw the light
No.
again. Yeah.
Oh, bro.
That's
But
crazy,
yeah,
man. Yeah. What a story.
thank you.
No, honestly, what a story. And I just I love that it's not a typical story, right? Like a lot of people, they pursue comedy, obviously for various reasons, or the arts, I should say.
Yeah.
For me, like I pursue movies because I just love movies and that's all I know. Like my parents kind of raised me on it. And I love the idea of telling stories. And I guess in my adolescence, my adulthood, that's when I realized I can kind of project feelings or values or whatever emotions I'm kind of going through in my mind into a story, right? And that's what I found most captivating. But you yourself, you used comedy like this lifelong passion to diffuse a lot of tension, a lot of drama in your household,
Yeah.
and alleviate, like, kind of mediate family members, that were going through pain and anguish, which I find very, very intriguing. The fact that I guess it's in hindsight, right? Because you didn't actively pursue that when you were with your family, like being funny, right? You kind of just did it maybe as a psychological way of deactivating any tension in the house, right?
Absolutely. And even just for
Yeah,
myself, you know what I mean? Because
yeah,
like,
yeah. That's what I was gonna say.
I,
Subconsciously for yourself, you're probably like dealing, let's say, with anxiety or like
yeah,
borderline depression kind of thing. But your body, that's how your body was able to react to it, right? Instead of
100%.
going that route, it was like, no, let's look to the humor of this moment, right? Let's look to the light side of things instead of being dark and depressive. Because a lot of people can turn that way, right? They can
Yeah.
kind of like switch their mind that way. So I'm really happy it worked for you for the better. You
Thank
kind of answered my question, kind of touched on it, where your family and friends came across as supportive. Um, were they as, and do they continue to be supportive with your comedy, or was it more of a learned kind of proposition?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I say family, I mean specifically my brother and my cousins. My
Okay.
mom still hated the idea.
Is she still hating the idea? Seeing some
Yeah,
progress?
yeah, yeah. She
Yeah.
still thinks it's not a real job,
Right.
but
Right.
in her mind now, it's kind of like, well, I can't, like, I've been doing it consistently for so long, and she
Yeah,
sees how much I invested into
I
it,
was gonna
where it's
say, yeah.
no matter, so in her mind now, it's like whatever I tell this guy is not like, it's not gonna make a difference. Like
Yeah, so my parents act too.
he made
Yeah,
his, like he chose his path.
made up his mind.
And
Yeah,
as much as I keep telling him that this is stupid, like whatever, is not gonna go anywhere, he's not gonna listen. So now she's kind of turning around. She's not so much supportive, but she's less on the side of convincing me not to do it.
yeah,
You know, like now she'll ask me like, "Oh, how'd the show go? Whatever, things like that." Um, but it's not. It's straight away from like, you should stop doing comedy, focus on a real job. Because I do have a job outside of this, but
right.
like, but yeah. So I wouldn't say supportive. I would just say less discouraging.
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like not right up my ass, but around the corner.
Yeah, yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah,
But my brother, like he's always been supportive from day one. You know what I mean? He's definitely been a huge support system. In terms of friends, like yeah, there's a couple friends that will still show you love, but a lot of them just don't come to shows anymore, which I get because in
no,
the
I
beginning
understand.
when they were coming to shows, it was like open mics where I was performing for like
But
five
there's also a
people.
novelty, right? Like you just started and like
Yeah,
the hype, right?
yeah,
But now it's like your career. So it's like to go consistently, it's like, okay, like we know he's funny, you know what I mean? It's kind of, or even that
exactly.
they just know your humor or know who you are as a person. So they can't kind
Yeah,
of distinguish the two. So it's kind of like I said, the novelty wears off of we've seen him on stage, we know how he acts, whatever.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah,
can see him coming around for sure when you get your first special, right? Because that'll be like another chapter in your life, right?
definitely.
Um, but yeah, no, for sure. That's really crazy. And I love how you like touched on the challenges, traveling around Canada recently and, kind of dealing with the diversity, how your humor, your style of comedy kind of resonates with certain individuals like the
Mhm.
crowd, the audience, and also the challenges of, becoming a comedian, right? Like, let's be honest, it's not easy. The arts, I should say, right? Like a filmmaker,
Yeah.
anything that we're trying to pursue has its drawbacks. I want to know from you though, like what motivates you most about this craft despite encountering those setbacks and failures?
I think it's like it's similar to what Chappelle had said in at the end of one of his specials, where he talks about how as a comedian, like we're kind of the only people left that are allowed to talk reckless. And it's like we almost
Right.
have this responsibility to speak that way, because otherwise like the future generations won't know what reckless talk looks like, and I think one of the biggest things for me of this craft wasn't so much about like the art form itself in terms of like what I can gain from it or like where I can go with stand up,
Right.
but more so what stand up gave to me. You know what I mean? And I think what it gave me was like this sense of learning how to navigate the world and not take shit too seriously. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when things hit the fan or when something traumatic happens in your life, oftentimes it's easy to dwell in that and become like a victim to your
Yeah.
circumstances.
Yeah.
You hear a lot of comedians go up on stage and tell some of the most vulnerable stories. And I think to me, that's like, and people say it all the time that it's like therapy, but it really is, because like you're trying to find a sense of light and humor in some of the most darkest and heinous of situations. And to me, that's the most beautiful thing about stand up, is that like it really is the last place where I think the real freedom of speech exists. You know what I mean? And I think that's
For
why I
sure.
have so much respect for people that do this on a day-to-day basis, people that make a living off of it, but also just the art itself. I think it's incredible.
Well, you said it right there, like invoking the name of Dave Chappelle. Like
Yeah.
he's one of my favorites for that reason. Again, I'm big on storytelling. So as you can imagine, he's not like your typical comedian that goes up there, 1-2 hit and then the punchline.
Yeah.
This guy gives a long drawn out story that touches on politics, touches on race, touches on, some thought provoking subject matter that a lot of people don't really want to think about when they're watching a comedian. But he does it in a way where he kind of takes you on this journey. Like he was talking about like slavery, like Africans dealing with slavery. And then it's
Mhm.
amazing to me, that's his genius, right? That he kind of like the punchline, you kind of laugh about it at the end, right? And it's kind of touching on what you're saying is, observing life through a different lens, right? Like, yes, if we could all go around thinking everything is dark and gloomy and, why are we even here? But if you kind of see the positivity in some things, or just, again, making light of it, going back to like you as a, a person growing up in a hostile like household, right? Or a tension filled household, how to navigate through that. So that's really cool, man. Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, man, it's wild, right? Because like I have my days, especially like, recently, where you kind of question, like, especially with the end of the year coming. I don't know if you're the same as a creative, like you wonder like, oh, what's the new year going to bring? Fear of the unknown. It's kind of exciting, but it's also very terrifying because you don't know. But that's life, I guess, right? And that's like, even if you had a steady, safe job or passion, whatever have you, right? I think like the benefit for us is that we can actually say we're doing something we love, right? And that's what kind of draws us closer to achieving our success. But I want to get into now, like, the fact about, because we've kind of touched on the subject of mental health, really. A lot of these kind of underlining meanings to this conversation has to do with, right, being true to yourself and looking after your well-being. And upon viewing your Instagram page, I noticed you're an advocate of meditative practices that encourage self-care through a spiritual lifestyle. And I find this really cool because it's a unique attribute from your profile that distinguishes you from many comedians in the industry who I don't see sharing the same content. You know what I mean? It's just flat out gigs and reels and just videos of just jokes. And then here you are with every other video by a tree or sitting on a patch of grass, just staring into the camera and saying, "Did you have a hard day today? Let me talk." And I know I'm being honest, like it actually has helped me with a lot of aspects. I kind of always look for inspirational content, and I thought that was so compelling. But I want to know from you again, like, why does this subject matter carry such importance for you?
I think it's funny because you actually said something about it earlier, where it was like growing up and for a large portion of my life, I was dealing with like depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like at the time, I didn't know that's what it was. I didn't even know I was battling those things, to be quite honest, because like when you're so in that mindset, it's like that's all you know. So like you don't even think that like there's more to the world or more ways to view the world outside of this realm
to better yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like
there's no way out. That's what depression is, right? You feel 100%. Helpless. Yeah.
100%. And you kind of see everything through that lens, And so like I remember, I guess the clearest memory I can remember as to what was the kind of the catalyst or the catapult that pushed me in that direction was at first I always had like this iffy relationship when it came to religion, because my dad was a very religious person growing up, but he was also a very angry person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as a kid, when you see things like that, it's like, well, I don't know how the 2 and 2 equate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like see it as like almost this negative influence in your life if you get too invested in it. And again, I got nothing for love for my pops now. You know what I mean?
For sure, yeah. You found amends?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, perfect.
But I think that was like the first glimpse of like what religion was, what spirituality was. And like growing up as a kid, religion isn't taught to you. It's like something that's given to you that's like, hey, you got to follow this.
It's inherited, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, why? Like, no one tells you.
Like I'm Catholic, but it's like I never had a day where I'm like, why am I Catholic?
yeah, exactly.
I know what you mean. It's not something you adopt yourself. Like you kind of just thrust it into a baptism, communion. Yeah.
Yeah, or you're told all these stories, but no one tells you how to apply it to your life.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's true.
So growing up and learning all of those things, I had this like weird relationship with religion, weird relationship with God, because to me, it was like he was like this authority figure. You know what I mean? That like everything that I did, like I had this weird thought. I remember at one point too that the reason why bad shit was happening to me was because I was doing wrong things in front of God. So I always felt guilty. I always felt ashamed and things like that.
I understand.
But it wasn't until I got into like this, it wasn't really a relationship. It was like, because a relationship, both people think, no, they're dating. I
Right.
was the only one that thought we were dating. So you know what I mean?
Oh, wait, is this a past relationship?
Yeah, it was a past
Oh my
relationship.
god. So you're in well, that's odd. Yeah, I've never been you were dating
Yeah, it was
someone
like,
that thought you guys were just friends?
well, no, it was like it was a situationship. Like she basically
That's so
like
funny.
made it seem like we weren't dating, but then
That's a skit. As yeah, that's a skit on its own. My God.
you know what I mean? So
No, I understand. No, for sure, it's not far fetched, but like I just kind
yeah,
of wrap my. You know what I mean? It's like at one point, don't you say like, yeah, keep spending time alone with this
yeah,
person? Yeah,
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 exactly. But I think basically from that
yeah.
though, that was like my first experience of like heartbreak. You know what I mean? It's my first
Okay.
actually
Like when you
falling.
found out they didn't have the same feelings.
Yeah, yeah. Or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
no, not even that. The way it
Oh.
ended was crazy. She ended up like hooking up with some next man, dating him, told me that she wasn't ready for a relationship.
Oh,
But
okay,
then,
okay. Like she decided to do it the fucking street way.
yeah, exactly. But again, though, again, it was like one of those things where like it was so like when that whole thing played out, it was like I remember my first thought was like, yo, like all this shit happens to me. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh
why is
yeah.
this type of thing? And it's like, but then I remember like as bad as that experience may have been like felt at the time, it was probably the biggest catalyst for change because after that, it was like a domino effect. Like I remember one time I was like thinking about all of these things like that
Right.
went wrong. And like, you know, I was like in the deepest place of like that depressed feeling. And I remember one day I woke up and I'm like, yo, I don't want to feel like this anymore. You know, and then that's when I started diving deeper into like Buddhism and like meditative properties and things like that. And I
Nice.
remember having a different relationship with spirituality as a whole and with God as a whole, because rather than feeling as though like I'm powerless to like life or whatever the case is, now I understood that like life wasn't happening to me, it was happening for me,
I
you
was
know,
just about to say that. Yeah. That
yeah, and
notion. Yeah.
all of those hurdles that you experience through life, like with even with that relationship, whatever that I was in or part of,
Right.
it taught me something. You know what I mean? So you can choose to either take lessons from those experiences in life, or you can see it as something that's burdensome that you can't get out of, you know? But I think that revelation for me and that feeling of like finally being free of like that place that I was stuck in, I just felt this urge to be like, yo, like I want other people to know that this is possible too. You know what I mean? And I think that's why, and I've always been an advocate for mental health because there's been a lot of mental health that was existent in my family, but like in the South Asian community, it's not really talked about. You know what I
No,
mean?
for
It's
sure.
very
Yeah. Even an Italian bring up, man. Like we weren't the way I
yeah,
was raised, gender roles are very poignant. You know what I mean? Like a very
100%.
relevant. Yeah. Like in the sense that you know, you're a guy. Like when I went through my own heartbreaks, I was told straight to my face, like, you know, it's been a week, move on. It's like a
Yeah.
week, like bro. And I'm not kidding you, man. Like I have a very tough mom, and like the way she talks to me, and I obviously it's like a tough love. Like they do it because they don't want you to be sad and whatever. It breaks their
Exactly.
heart. But I'm just saying is like the gender dynamics, like with a girl, it's more like tender and like, yo, fuck him, you don't need him. And they were saying the same things, but it's like different. Like you could tell it was more like
Yeah.
focus on getting a job, focus on work. And by not adhering to like your mental health, right? By ignoring it, you're only damaging yourself. That's what kind of I learned.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I read a lot of like self-help books and well-being books in the pandemic, because I wanted to really kind of understand, you know, who I am as a human being. And this is
Definitely.
also what helped me transcend my career, right? Help me navigate my passion to become a filmmaker, because that was something I was also ignoring, right? Just basically, like you were saying, kind of denying the person you are and letting life happen to you instead of for you. And I see
Yeah.
that as now too. Like whenever something bad happens, I always give it like a week. Sometimes it might take a year, but in a short term, I quickly realize like, wow, if that didn't happen, this didn't happen. You know what I mean?
100%, bro.
Like I really
100%.
believe that. And I feel like individuals like us, like, so you're a Buddhist. You practice Buddhist religion? Would you
Like
call?
I wouldn't label myself. Like I would just say like that's definitely a dogma or a philosophy of life that I follow. And like, but like I think all religions kind of speak the same truth. I just try to find the truth in all of it.
Right. Yeah. Because what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say is like being Catholic and practicing that dogma of like Buddhism.
Yeah.
We both like can resonate with each other about there's a higher being, and that's why I wish like I don't want to
Yeah.
get like whole like spiritual political right now, but
Yeah.
I wish that the world would like see it that way, where yeah, we have all these different religions, but just like we have different countries, we're all trying to achieve the same goals, right?
Yeah.
A quality of life, a standard of life that we can all find happiness and peace. And with religion, that's if you notice, as a collective society, that's what we all believe in, is a higher power, something that's greater than ourselves, and something that we adhere to. That's our humanity. So
Yeah.
it's very beautiful that you said that, and that's why I'm saying like you're a very noble man, and like that's why no, I'm serious, man. Like I love your comedy, I love your work, but what makes you different, that 1%, is because you practice and you preach these kinds of spiritual messages that really uplift a lot of people that are kind of like in dour moments. So yeah, keep doing that, keep doing your thing for sure. I want to know, I want to know like how has this content benefited your career and the lives of the people that consume it?
You mean like the whole
Yeah, like I wanted to, yeah. So what I want to know is like, because I'm watching it, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if people out there are really like absorbing it the way I am. Like, has it in the comedian industry touched any lives, any colleagues, any peers? Like they come to you and say, thanks for helping me out with this, or like people in your audience, like your fan base, have they DM'd you? Like what has the reception been like?
To be honest, like at one point I was actually going to stop making them because I felt insecure almost. Like I felt insecure. Like I felt like,
bro, yeah.
I felt like, yo, like these are so long. Are people even watching it? Like, with someone,
get that one like,
with someone,
make you question your life.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But then I realized I'm like, yo, I'm just feeding into like, I'm forgetting why I chose to do that in the first place. 100%. You know what I mean? Because then I started fixating on the idea of like, people aren't viewing this as much as the other content. I don't know if people are like, no one's sharing it, no one's commenting. I don't even know if it's like people are listening.
Exactly.
But then exactly what you said is what started to happen. Like there was some people that started hitting me up in the DMs and just asking me questions, like not even about the videos, but just in general about life or like feeling some type of way. And I remember growing up as a kid, even in my friend group, I was always kind of that guy that, not to sound pretentious, but like, I think it was just because like, I got very good at learning how to read other people's emotions because I knew
fair. Emotional intelligence.
Because I knew that like if they were upset, it would be bad for me. So like maybe I gotta learn how to like navigate it. But because of that, it transferred into friendships too, where like I was just more empathetic or like more willing to listen to certain like to people and their stories. And then people start opening up to me a lot more. And I think this is exactly what started to happen now, where people started reaching out, especially in the most recent video I made, where it was about pursuing your passion and like growing up with like immigrant parents. It's like, there's always a sense of guilt when you want to pursue something that you love, because it's like, yo, I know how much you struggled to bring me here. I know how hard it was for you to create a life for me. I want to do the same thing for you, but it's almost like, am I being selfish for doing something that I love doing rather than following what it is you want me to follow, And I think that was one of the biggest things that I was battling. But I think that video really touched a lot of people because I started getting a lot of messages about that specifically. And like a lot of people saying like, yo, I've been having the same thought. I've been dealing with the same thing. And this definitely gave me a different perspective, or let me know that I'm not alone in feeling that way, So
no,
I think
that's understandable, like for sure. And like just kind of speaking to you, that's why I kind of like relate with you a lot on a lot of the things that you're discussing. And I also like just enjoy your character because you're empathetic right off the bat. You can kind of tell, and you have that emotional intelligence. And there's no shame in that, right? Like to kind of say that there are people that lack that. There are people that just can't understand putting themselves in someone else's shoes, or just really can't sympathize what they're going through, especially in today's society. Not to shit on anyone, but like,
No, I
I
get
just
it,
feel
bro.
like it's such a superpower, bro, to have to emotional intelligence, like to say like, yeah, I understand what you're going through. That's why people, like, it's so funny, like, because I hear it now, like, especially with heartbreak and shit like that, like everyone's like, oh, everyone's the same, everyone's this. It's like, yeah, because no one takes a moment to just stop and say like, well, what's the other
Yeah,
person asking from me? Do you know what I mean? It's all this selfish, like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. And I'm guilty of that too, of course, because I went through my own traumas, that I've developed this like hard exterior where it's like, I don't want to let anyone inside. But I realized recently the only way to like kind of get back out there, the only way to, you know, have a healthy relationship with another human being is to be vulnerable again. You got to open your heart up a bit. And that's what people struggle with so much with. You know, it's like, oh, I don't want to make the first move, I don't want to do that. And it's like, what, why not? Like this whole notion about, you know, telling someone your true feelings. Like, you don't have to say flat out like I love you, but like, you know, those people that if they find out they like you like too soon, right?
yeah,
And they think you're needy and this and that, it's like, well,
yeah,
what's wrong with just being like transparent? You know what I mean?
100%.
What, it's a sign of
Well,
flattery, right? But yeah, it's a different values now.
no, no, 100. Yo, I 100% agree, bro. And I think one of the things for me too was like the reason why this whole message that I was trying to like yeah, I guess preach, or like even like like the idea of like spirituality and things like that for me was learning that vulnerability piece, but not being afraid of it, you know,
Right.
because I think I wanted to get myself into a position where like I can be as transparent as I can with someone. And in doing so, I'm not afraid of the repercussions because I know I'll be okay. You know,
Yeah.
and I think that's the biggest thing is when people are afraid of actually expressing themselves to someone that they care about is because they don't know if it's going to be reciprocated. But I think the idea of emotional intelligence isn't necessarily, or the purpose of like achieving that peace of mind or like peace within yourself isn't so that like bad shit doesn't happen to you. It's so that when bad shit happens or heartbreak happens, that at the end of the day, you know that you're going to be okay. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I talked about this in one of my videos too, is that like the safest place in any storm is right in the center. You know, like in a hurricane, it's in the eye. In the tornado, it's in the eye.
Yeah.
Even though there's a storm going on
The
around you,
nucleus.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
the nucleus is
Yeah.
quiet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, for
So
sure. I understand that. And I love, you know, I'm it's very insightful just listening to you, you know, just how you kind of navigate your emotions. And it's very brave too, right? As a man to like kind of like discuss this. Because I know a lot of people would say, why are you talking about your feelings? But
yeah,
that's how we learn. We learn from one
100%.
another, right? How to be better. We help each other and feed off each other. So good on
Absolutely.
you, man, for sure.
Thank
So
you.
I want to get back to your content.
Sure.
You know, you as a comedian, your latest project that you've been proudly promoting across social media is a short film comedy called Tales from the Mandem. And I
Yeah.
want to know, like, what is the premise behind this story, and why did you decide to become involved with the project?
So if, oddly enough, the whole thing actually came about from a sketch that I made a while back, like
Okay,
in my
cool.
basement. I was just playing on like a little steel
Yeah,
pan
yeah,
story, but the whole idea of the story revolves around a character named Grungy, who is kind of like your everyday, um, stereotypical Toronto man.
yeah.
And
Okay.
I think the character itself was like an embodiment of like someone that everyone has come across in their life before. Like
100%.
someone who's just slimy, who like just has no
Selfish,
regard.
conceited.
Yeah,
Yeah.
selfish,
Yeah.
no regard for other people,
Yeah.
but like just so over the top that it's just comical.
Cartoony.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like a
that's kind
caricature of a Toronto man. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's exactly where like the
No
whole
redeeming qualities.
yeah.
That's awesome,
So
man.
that's essentially where the essence of his character came from.
Awesome. Yeah. And I guess this is something like you wanted to cultivate yourself because it's a passion project from the beginning. Like this was your baby. Like you got a
No,
lot
so
of
like
reception.
yeah,
Good
it
reception. Yeah.
definitely got good reception. But the
Yeah.
crazy thing is the way it happened was like a couple years ago, I showed up to this set that like one of my friend, she was shooting like a commercial, a fake commercial, just to make like a demo reel, I guess, like a portfolio for
Right.
herself. And I met this my boy Henry, who kind of directed and did the whole videography and everything.
Yeah.
Like he filmed the whole thing. But basically, I met him one time and I met him there years ago. After I posted that sketch, he saw it and he's like, bro, I love this story. Can we make this into like a feature short? And I'm like, 100%, bro. So
That's amazing.
he reached out to me.
He's a filmmaker, by the way?
He's a filmmaker, yeah.
Oh, awesome, awesome, yeah.
And he works for a production. They have their own production company. I think it's called Lost People Pictures.
Okay, cool. Like yeah. Sounds legit.
Yeah.
Sounds a legit operation. That's what you need.
So he's the one that hit me up and was like, yo, I want to turn this into something real. And I was like, oh, let's do it. So, we spent, I think, I want to say 3-4 days filming, but they were like 16-hour days. You know what I mean? Just getting everything down pat. And then it took about a year or so, or like it took just 8 months to a year to finally finish editing, because he also works full time in the film industry.
Oh, okay, I understand.
He was kind of like going back and forth, getting the coloring.
It's tough, man. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, bro. And it was, bro, like, so I kind of just, again, it was something that I never thought about. It was something that I wanted to happen, but I didn't know how to make happen.
Right.
And it kind of just fell in my lap,
Awesome.
And I'm more than grateful for those guys and the team, man. Because
for sure, it looked professional, right? Like you had an actual team. That's what I was alluding to, right? Like, did you get a production team? Was it you that filmed it? Like, what happened?
Bro, it was like a skeleton crew. So he was
That's
the filmmaker, but then he like just called in a lot of people that he worked with in the past, some of his homies.
Do the lighting and stuff, yeah.
Exactly. And they came on, they're like, bro, let's make this shit happen.
No, man, I've been on set before, and like that's all you need. Like, people don't realize a lot of the projects I make, given obviously their production value, they are made like sometimes solo, like just by myself.
Yeah.
But that's what sometimes you need, right? Like to get a vision out there. It's like you don't have time to assemble a crew and figure out budgeting and all that. It's like sometimes you just got to get that vision out there, because then it becomes irrelevant, right? Like Tales of the Mandem. Imagine if it was like a 2-year production. You know what I mean? And you finally get the short film out in 2 years from now. Like, where are you at your career? Do you even want to put it out? You know what I mean? So it's like, good on you that you're like always on top of the game and putting it out there. And yeah, for sure, being grateful for the people around you. That's quite a good quality to have. And I want to know, like, how has the short film, because I've noticed it's gone official selection at a festival or two. And I want to know, like, go ahead. Sorry.
No, finish where you're saying.
No, I just wanted to say, like, that reception, like, how has that helped your brand as a comedian? Did it create more opportunities for you to perform stand-up? Like, were you able to leverage that, those accolades to get more gigs?
Not as yet. I don't want to speak too much about what we're doing with the project yet, but there definitely is some more things in the work for it. But as of recently, we got nominated for best. I got nominated for Best Comedic Actor from BIPOC Film Festival. Nice. And I also got selected as like Best Comedic Short from BIPOC Film Festival.
Awesome.
Yeah, but there's definitely some other things that we're looking to kind of start pushing a bit more.
I wanted to make it exclusive on the podcast. You heard it here first, Corner Talks. No, I'm joking. I understand. I know what it's like, man. You can't say certain things like, yeah, I got.
Well, it's just because there's nothing official yet, so I don't want to put anything out.
I know, and trust me, I believe that. Like when I tell people I can't tell you, and they go, "Why?" And I'm like, "Well, because I don't know myself. Like if it's official, and it's like I don't want to share it." Like recently, my film got into the Toronto Shorts International Film Festival.
That's dope.
It's being held at it's being held at UFT, so I'm really excited. But for a month and a half, I couldn't share news to anyone because they said we will let you know when you can disclose it. I'm like, oh shit. So now I can, obviously, but up until that time, I was like telling people like, the video's removed and you'll know why. You know what I mean? Kind of like hint, nudge, nudge. But good on you, man. I'm looking forward to. I saw the film. Like I really enjoyed the production that was involved, and that kind of like begs my next question. Do you foresee yourself developing more narrative projects like Tales from the Mandem and potentially expanding your character actor comedy into skills into like feature film projects similar to what Adam Sandler and Will Ferrell did?
Bro, I would love to, man.
Yeah.
I think that was like, because like I said, before stand-up, I started in improv and sketch, you know what I mean? And a lot of it was like, and then I remember even in high school, we created like our own play. Like we like did a whole like we wrote it ourselves and everything. And
Gotcha.
I remember we took it around to different high schools as part of the Sears Festival. But like again, we were just kids from the hood. So like when we formed this play, like these schools had money. Like they had fucking props, like and here we were where we're like just like we're like we're using the air as a door. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Low
Like,
budget, man. Shoestring budget. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But that's why I love the run and gun, man, because I don't know, there's something gritty about like that kind of filmmaking. Like Tarantino's my hero, right? So you kind of see like Reservoir Dogs, and obviously you had a budget that I can't comprehend even now because it's $1 million, right? Yeah. But $1 million is like chump change in Hollywood. But you see the film Reservoir Dogs, and you see something like Django Unchained, and I don't know, there's like a charm to that gritty, like indie independent film. You know what I mean? Like filmmaking, like one location, like that's where the magic happens, right? Not that Django Unchained wasn't to the same level or caliber, but I always like enjoy like seeing the come up of a lot of filmmakers, like looking back, like, you know, just popping, like even for music, like Eminem, like his first kind of like album, like it's just, if you really listen to it, I'm not talking about like my name is what, like that song, whatever. I'm talking about like Infinite. I don't know if you ever watched that.
Yeah.
Or like his first album. There's just a quality that it's like frozen in time. Like it's before they became famous, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, man, that's really commendable. I'm really proud of you, like the progress I've seen since meeting you at Nothing Fancy, that comedy show. You know, it was really cool to capture a little bit of your comedy in that behind the scenes vlog that I made. And you've been very supportive, very generous in sharing that video. So thank you again. Much more content to be coming out as well. But yeah, man, for sure. Yeah. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Do you have anything else to say before you leave?
No, that's basically it, bro. I just want to thank you again for the opportunity. If anyone has social media, Instagram, you can follow me at the Punjabi Timbit.
That's right, Punjabi Timbit. Let's go. Now that's just your Instagram name. That's not your like stage name or anything, right?
No. My stage name is just my name, Jesse Singh.
Bro, when you first mentioned that at the Nothing Fancy, I'm like, did I hear that right? Like, is it?
Yeah.
And you weren't kidding. Like Punjabi Timbit. Like, search.
Yeah, it definitely sticks.
That's hilarious, buddy. Well, it's a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you again, Jesse Singh. Thank you again, everybody, for listening, and we'll talk soon.